Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a very sexy romantic episode of the Metal Meltdown. It's Valentine's Day, or at least it will be when you see this thing. And today we're talking about some of the hottest, sexiest metal albums of all time. And to help me count this down, we've got the one and only Necrosexual, the most electrifying man in corpse entertainment. Is that not what your little Instagram banner says? Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're damn straight. You got the tagline correct.
Hell yes.
I do have to clarify. It's the Necrosexual.
My apologies. Allow me to correct myself. The Necrosexual.
Hell yeah. It's a great falsetto.
Thank you. I used to sing in a band in high school. I should do it more nowadays.
Yeah.
That was like fucking ages ago. I don't know. I'm going to have like motherfuckers in the comments just like, shit, it's Valentine's Day and he's saying, please sing more.
Yeah. A million heavy metal hard-ons just popped in cyberspace.
Hell, that's what we want. After all, it is Valentine's Day. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the hottest, sexiest albums of all time. Maybe they're not about sex, and no, this isn't some Revolver magazine bullshit where it's just like, girl, hot. Nuh-uh. We're talking about albums that, like, this is the shit you want to play when you have a special lady or man or other, not my fucking business, and you just want a nice night. You catch my drift? You want something nice, something hot, something that's going to get the mood just right, but still going to give you those heavy jams that the both of you desire.
Hell yeah. And I'm ready to put the VD in Valentine's Day, if you catch my drift.
Fuck yeah. The both of us, the Necrosexual, and myself, we have chosen 5 albums. Why don't you get us started, good sir?
All right, baby. So, album number 5. And I apologize in advance because this is 2022, so I'm all about inclusion, and my list is a little bit of a sausage fest. But I wanted to do albums that were honest to me and that truly hold a special place in my dark heart. Albums that I've had a romantic connection with as a musician and as a heavy metal maniac, and maybe also based on some true life events, if you know what I mean. So at the top of the list, of course, we have Van Halen.
Yes.
The self-titled album. Anything with Diamond Dave is going to be on there. Of course, I'm a big fan of his solo work as well. The Wild from the Heat EP is really worth it for the cover art alone. And Eat 'em with Smile, another riff fest. But their solo album, their first album rather, self-titled Van Halen, it just rocks from start to finish. It's a total banger. And it'll also hopefully lead you to some good hot and heavy banging when you're running with the devil.
Absolutely. I mean, even just looking at that cover, they're straight up just rocking it right there. Like, look at him, just like, like yeah, he's looking at someone in the bleachers right now going, you lady, what's up?
Yeah, there's real sex appeal. Even Michael Anthony was hot, which is no easy task.
Hell yeah. I mean, and not to mention, it's just a great album. There's a lot of 80s rock and late 70s rock and metal that's just kind of perfect in general. But that's definitely one of at the top of the list for sure. I mean, Ain't Talking About Love, Running with the Devil, Eruption, which, you know, I'm pretty sure that literally made people cream their pants back in the day. It probably still does.
Yeah, a lot of guitarists and probably a lot of other fans. And one of the deep cuts on the album, the closer, On Fire, I've always said that that's kind of like a proto-thrash song. It's pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely a bit more jarring than the other songs. Got some rousing falsettos at the end, but it kind of sounds like a thrash metal banger. So, again, Van Halen definitely ahead of their time, way heavier than their time.
Absolutely. No argument there.
All right. Keep this train rolling, right?
Absolutely. For me, number 5 on my list, something just a little bit more recent. Spell Eater from Huntress, not too recent. This came out back in 2012. Rest in peace, Jill Janis. For me, this album is just, it just bleeds pure sex appeal. Like those roaring, shrieking vocals, those demented heavy metal twin guitars. Janis as a singer, as a front woman, as a performer is electric. This album sounds like being seduced by like a coven of witches or vampires. Like it's menacing, it's sexy, it's gnarly. I had the pleasure of meeting Jill Janis a few times when she would come through with Huntress. I think one time on the Mayhem Fest 2013, And then again later that year when they were touring with like Lamb of God and Testament. And she's just an absolute fucking sweetheart on top of being an amazing singer. There's the other albums. Starbound Beast almost made it on this list solely because of the song I Want to Fuck You to Death, which, you know, if we're doing top 10 songs, that would be here. But Spell Eater, I think all things considered, is a more consistent and a sexier album, I would say.
Yeah, eating those spells all night long.
Fuck yeah. She's got like one song on the album, like Night Rape, which despite its questionable title, like throughout the song, she's like, hell yeah, let's just lay back and let's just fuck all night long. It's a genuinely sexy song.
Yeah, sounds very romantic indeed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, so my number 4, I just got this remastered version. We have Pretty Hate Machine by 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, hell yeah.
And of course, Pretty Hate Machine is pretty damn sexy. I really like this one. It's hard to choose a favorite 9 Inch Nails album, but I really dig how this is like a very electronic, almost new wave album. It's still super heavy. And it's got a pretty consistent fuck vibe going on from start to finish. Really massive keyboards. And then recently on the internet, there was a picture that was circulating on Twitter. I think I might have retweeted it, of Trent Reznor's first publicity photo when he was like promoting this album. And he's like super dorky looking with like a backwards beret, like a leather beret, like sitting in front of keyboards. And he looks like a real dork. And the point is, he could kick off an amazing career, to quote the meme, with that publicity photo. So that's pretty motivating. But yeah, this is the first record I ever bought that was not a metal album, like after being very intense into like death metal and black metal and of course thrash metal when I was like 17. Wow. I had to expand my palette a little bit. So this definitely opened my eyes into something that I could actually have, not never have.
Fucking hell. A 9 Inch Nails, great choice in general. I mean, I still remember being a kid and listening to Closer for the first time, you know, that like super different album, mind you. But that chorus, like, I want to fuck you like an animal, and that like super heavy, dirty bass line that came right after it. That was definitely an eye-opening moment for a 12-year-old Robert Walton for sure. And that album has aged so well. Yeah,
I remember seeing that music video on MTV when I was 8 years old, and I'm pretty sure that kickstarted my puberty. So thank you, Trent.
That's a pretty big accomplishment right there. Just watching TV and all of a sudden you're like, oh God, I'm a man now.
Like the change has come.
Hell yeah. For me, number 4 on my list is another more recent kind of album, Satanic Royalty from Midnight. Black thrash, speed metal, kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different kind of extreme metal styles. These guys are super sleazy. They always have been. I could probably pick any album from their discography and it would fit in just fine here. But this one in particular, I mean, from the album cover, which has like these 2 girls on the cover lusting over a knife. And there's a song that's like lust, fire, fuck, death. And I think I'm misquoting that, but there's a song on the album along those lines. The riffs are gnarly in the vein of like classic Venom and Motorhead. So there's a lot of like, you know, Venom, Motorhead, sex appeal in the mix too. It's just like a gnarly, greasy, old school heavy metal banger, but with modern production value and just a touch of a extra black metal spice that makes it feel extra dirty, extra wrong. Like you don't necessarily want your parents to catch you listening to this, and especially not doing unquestionable things with another human being while listening to this.
Or with yourself. I mean, let's be realistic. We're talking
or with yourself. It's hey,
Mom, I'm listening to Midnight, Mom. Get out of here.
Don't mind me, Mom. What's going on? Open the door, honey. No.
Yeah. I believe that record also has Lust, Filth, and Sleaze.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Lust, Filth, and Sleaze. Yeah. That chorus is fucking fantastic.
Can't Stop Steal, another banger. Midnight, much respect to them. I mean, I've seen them grow pretty big in a decade. They went from playing like piece of shit bars in Philadelphia where I live in like 2012 to playing like the Decibel Tour. I saw them perform that song Lust, Filth, and Sleaze live at a Ukrainian like private club for my friends, like
Holy
Street Metal
shit.
Massacre. Yeah, it was like a Street Metal Massacre fest in Philadelphia. And it was sick seeing them play it in that size of the venue. Everyone was trying to mosh, but everyone had fucking spilt their beers on the floor. So it was like a slip and slide to midnight. And I was just lucky to walk out with all my teeth and no broken bones. So that was a grand old time.
Damn, that sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They're still getting bigger and bigger too. Like they just put out like a single a couple of weeks ago. They're about to do a big tour of Mayhem and Watain, which is going to be weird for them, I think, because like they're like a really raunchy kind of black thrash speed metal punk band, and then they're just going to hang out with like a bunch of trad black metal bands, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, of course. And you know, I saw them on the Decibel tour a couple of years ago with Obituary and Creator. And another thing I like about Midnight, they fucking rock hard, and the drummer only has one bass drum. He's going all one footed the whole time. So it's like super punk rock too. I noticed things like that.
Fuck, now I'm extra pumped. I'm extra pumped for them.
I don't know how that's, if they still do that or if they've kind of picked up their bass attack, double bass attack on the new records. But it's impressive when you can see bands play alongside Creator and Obituary and keep it rocking, arguably steal the night with just 1 foot.
Oh, hell yeah. The element of mystery too, because they're still performing like with the bags over their heads and shit like that. Like there's an element of mystery there that I think is pretty cool.
Indeed, yeah. So is it your turn now? I'm losing.
Oh no, that's all. We got too excited talking about Midnight. I believe it's your turn.
Okay, it's my turn. Cool. All right. So that actually, I mentioned the Street Metal Fest in Philadelphia a couple years ago, and this reminded me of this next band, Leathürbitch from. Leathürbitch from. That
is an amazing name. Holy shit.
Yes. Yeah. It has the umlauts. It has the U, very heavy Motley Crue worship. And this record, their 2000, I want to say 18 self-titled EP, Leathürbitch, sounds like if Motley Crue were a bunch of thrashers. So it's the best of that kind of glam metal, sleazy, sexy vibe with some really heavy, like 1984 era sleaze metal riffs. And a ton of great falsettos from their singer, the wonderfully permed Joel Starr on vocals. So this is just a super rousing, kick you in the ass EP. One of my favorite songs is Leather and Lies. It opens it up. It's a total banger. And these guys are still going strong. They're from the West Coast, and they keep it real. Of course, Motley Crue, I didn't include them in this list, but they're always there in spirit when you come down to sexy romantic songs. I think that Leathürbitch is very, very fine modern day continuation of that mix of speed metal and glam metal and sleaze metal that's like not corny. It fucking rules. So definitely check it out. Leathürbitch, good dudes.
Hell yeah. I've never even heard of that, but that sounds 100% up my alley. Cause like Motley Crue was like a big gateway band for me. Like I loved listening to Shout at the Devil and like Too Fast for Love and shit like that as a teenager. And I still thoroughly like them, even despite the fact that they are not at all even remotely sexy or cool anymore. Yeah, poor old Vince Neil just really struggling. But hey, whatever. Old school Motley Crue still kicks, and I do love me some thrash. So Leathürbitch, it definitely sounds like something I'm going to have to keep an eye out for.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. You can thank me later. Tell them the Grim One sent you.
Hell yeah. Next up for me, War Moans from Mutoid Man. This is a super group featuring members of Converge and Cave In. These guys just write really chaotic stuff. It's like equal parts Baroness sludge metal and like Iron Maiden heavy metal with some punk flavor and some hardcore flavor. I'm picking this album in particular because so much of the music on this album, on top of being just absurdly catchy, a lot of it's just about fucking, and it's nasty and it's greasy. There's Date with the Devil. There's Microaggression, which is like this really hostile kind of thrashy banger. And my favorite cut, and it's the main reason this whole album is even on my list. There's a song, Kiss of Death. And I love how like slow and sensual the verses are. And I love how in the chorus, he slowly spells out, blow me a kiss of death. Like he'll go, blow! And then there's this super groovy riff, and then blow me! Almost like he's doing like a Danzig impersonation. And he just kind of keeps doing that over and over. And there's just something about that really hits that sweet spot for me.
6-liter bottle of Mountain Dew.
I almost put a Danzig album on this list instead of Mutoid Man, but I ended up picking this album just because it's all due respect to Danzig. I just think it's a stronger record. Would have gone with Danzig 2 had I picked a Danzig record, because, I mean, my dude's literally just rocking with his bare chest out on the album cover with a cross. Like, how much more sex appeal does it get than that?
Yeah, I would love for him to recreate or do like a modern day version of that album cover. Like, I know his physique has changed, as I've seen in the episode of Portlandia where he gets started. But fuck it, dude, you're Danzig. You can do whatever the hell you want. So.
Honestly, yeah. Like, I remember when he did that Danzig Sings Elvis album, and I was like, oh God, why did he do that? And then I thought, and then I went, he's Danzig. That's why he fucking did it.
Right. Of course. His cinematic career is a whole other episode, but intentionally or unintentionally, very entertaining man and very entertaining singer and talented singer as well. So next up on my list, we have The Iron Fist by Motorhead for all
very
of your
nice
fisting activities. Of course. I mean, this one has very, very special memories for me, if you know what I mean.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't fisting somebody while listening to this album, you're doing it wrong. End of story.
Yeah. Right. So, of course, one of my favorite songs in this bad boy, we have Sex and Outrage. Pretty much all the songs are about just being high and on speed and having sex, which is pretty typical.
As a classic fare. Motorhead album should be.
This one was also tied. I also have this on record, but I ended up because of just the true life events that inspired this and my love for this record, hearing it for the first time in some very passionate moments. I went with this one, but also Motorhead, Another Perfect Day, a little bit of a sleeper classic, but I really, really dig that record. It's got a sick album cover. You have the Thin Lizzy guitarist, and you have like Motor Lizzy on that record. So it's a very unique style, still super catchy, still super fun. And I enjoy that little departure that they took there before they kept going back to the typical Motorhead sound.
Mm-hmm. That typical Motorhead sound is pretty great though. Like it's a classic. It's maybe a little bit, a lot of people share it because it's the classic album, but damn, it still hits. Ace of Spades, and especially like Overkill and Bomber. So many great, gnarly, sexy tunes there.
Yeah, I had Ace of Spades and No Sleep Till Hammersmith. Those were my first two albums I got from them.
Hell yeah.
And still in heavy rotation.
Oh yeah, No Sleep Till Hammersmith is maybe one of the best live albums ever. Like it's absurd how well that album has aged.
In fucking indeed.
Hell yeah. That for me brings me to my number 2, I guess.
Yeah, number 2.
Yes, my brain's starting to fog. That's my own fault though. Couple drinks. Next up
rock
for me.
Roll.
Hell yeah, rock and roll. Next up for me is Turbo Lover, Turbo from Judas Priest. Judas Priest, another one of these bands where I could probably just slap on any album here. Those twin guitars, the leather S&M biker look. I mean, it's fucking iconic. But I'm picking this album in particular because of how like poppy and upbeat and like super sexual it is in nature. I mean, you got the track Locked In, Get Rocked All Over the World, and of course the title track Turbo, which is, I know people hated it back in the day, but I think people have finally warmed up to Turbo, and it's like glossier production and the more pop metal, glam metal vibe of the whole thing.
People love that song. It's so silly. Like,
it's so good.
Like, when they played that live, I saw them a couple years ago, and everybody went fucking crazy. The drunk guy that was next to my dad like fell on him during that song because he was rocking out so hard. So it was really, really heartwarming moment. The same street metal festival I told you about before with Midnight and Leathürbitch, they were playing that song on the PA system, and it became like a big drunken sing-along with the crowd just between bands. So
that's awesome.
That's one song that has withstood the test of time on that album.
Absolutely. I was also thinking Screaming for Vengeance because of tracks like Fever and like Devil's Child, but like, I don't know, something about Turbo just hits me just right, especially the title track. That could easily be played at a strip club, and it would fit in just fine.
I'm sure it has in many strip clubs.
Oh yeah, definitely. I could, I don't know where, mind you, but if anyone does know where, feel free to let me know for educational purposes.
Yeah, we're going to do some research and get back to you on that.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess that means it's the number 1 album pick for the Necrosexual at this point. So there's a lot of thought that went into that this morning. And I am a Renaissance fool, so my number 1 pick, we have the Music of Cosmos soundtrack. No, just joking. No, fuck that. I do have this on record, though. I thought it would be funny to show you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was about to say, all right.
I mean, it does have some good Shostakovich and Vangelis from Blade Runner on it. So this is a pretty solid record store find, but it's not the number one. My real number one, we have Venom, Welcome to Hell, baby. Yeah. This is usually my number one for most things. Definitely a huge influence on me and their attitude. I mean, look at this. Does it get any more romantic than these three dudes, the original, prototypical black metal heathens, just being completely over the top, just the sheer arrogance that they brought to the table. Their first song, Sons of Satan, sounds like their last song. It has this 30-second long finale, and it's only the first song.
Of course it does.
It's just sexy. And then, it's a song you can also get rowdy to. It's an album that makes you just want to party with your friends and get into all sorts of debauchery, which I feel like is the classic black metal experience instead of being sad in the woods. That's just me, but that's what rouses with me.
Yeah, tell that to Norway.
Yeah, they have a great sense of humor over there. Of course, you have the song Angel Dust, Red Light Fever, very romantic or at least sexual themed songs. One of my favorite deep cuts, the Necrosexual band covered the song and probably defiled it a little bit live. 1000 Days in Sodom. It's a total banger. Really heavy groove on that one. It's got tons of bass solos. So end to end, this album is just a goddamn banger, and I'm super happy that I have it on this picture vinyl. And I can just look at my muses whenever I want as it spins.
That's a really cool record. And that's probably a perfect record, too, because it really is just pure debauchery and sleaze and young teenage youthful stupidity in sonic form. Gnarly guitars. You can just feel sweat and blood dripping off of that thing non-stop. Great fucking choice for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Got to give a shout out as well to the recently departed Johnny Z. May he rest with the metal gods wherever he is, but I interviewed him a few years ago in 2020, and he talked about when he brought Venom over on that tour they did in the early 80s, the 7 Dates in Hell.
Oh, and fuck.
He was telling the story about how they brought explosives, just literally explosives, because that was the pyrotechnics back then, and how it was just fucking pyrotechnics and pieces of equipment just flowing everywhere, and headbangers walking out of the venue with their faces covered in soot. So it sounds totally metal. I wish I could have been alive back then, but it was a great story. And so there's a little Johnny Z wisdom right there.
Yeah, you definitely don't have people doing that shit nowadays. Pretty sure if a band tried to bring explosives like that, internationally, it's all right, you're on some kind of government watch list after this. You're done. You're touring in your country from now on.
Canceled, but it was a different time, Wild West, so to speak. And you're talking about youthful stupidity in sonic form. Of course, I got to mention my own record, Seeds of Seduction. If you can't tell in cyberspace, that's a nice sirloin steak on my groin for the album cover. A little bit of a Motley Crue tribute, and it has songs true to form, like "Screaming for the Steam and Demon Semen," that are very romantic, if you know what I mean. And also the closing number, "A Long Time to Die." But between you and me, that song's not about dying. It's taking a long time to do something else.
Hey, if I'm going to go out, that's how I'm going to go out. That's a pretty good way to go. And that is a great album, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely check that out. If I remember correctly, we did talk about it in one of the albums I missed videos. I don't remember which one. Feel free to comb through all of them. It's more views for me, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And for me, my number one album, this might not be a shocker for some people watching this because I've regularly talked about how much I love this record. And it just so happens to also be mad fucking hot. Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. I mean, this album is pure sex and sleaze. And I'm not talking about the big cuts that everyone knows, although Welcome to Jungle, hot as fuck.
Right here, baby.
Hell yeah, fantastic album.
Yeah. Visual aid.
Anything Goes is literally just let's just fuck, anything goes. And it's got all these really crazy kind of talk box guitar parts that I really dig. My Michelle, Sweet Child of Mine is a genuinely tender little ballad. It's So Easy, Night Train, just gnarly, greasy, kind of punky, heavy metal bruisers. But my fave is still the criminally underrated Rocket Queen, a song injected with so much sex and so much passion that Axl Rose literally fucked his girlfriend in the studio, and they used her moans for the breakdown later on in the song.
That's very Axl move. I did not realize that.
Very Axl.
Not surprising at all.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm really surprised that wasn't the only. That probably wasn't the only song they did that too. But
there's probably a couple who, like, maybe halfway through November Rain, you'll just hear like and like everyone goes, huh? What was that? And Axl Rose is like, and Axl's like, nothing. Let's just put a piano on top of it. We're good. But yeah, it's like, it's right in the middle of right in the middle of Rocket Queen, and like you get that like chunky bass line, dun 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 dun. It's just a great number. And of course, you know, the big cuts, Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City. If you're not having fun with those numbers, if you catch my meaning, then you're doing it wrong. It's that simple.
Yeah, or you're doing it by yourself. But yeah, very romantic. I was sifting through my collection, and of course I saw this, and I was like, that should definitely be on the list. But it's on, I'm sure, many other lists, and I wanted to pick albums that did have some real life inspiration for me, romantically and musically. So there might be
a little real life inspiration for me having put Appetite for Destruction on this list. I may or may not have asked my fiance, like, what do you think is like a really sexy metal album? And she went, honest to God, Appetite for Destruction. And I'm like, noted.
Yeah, right. Put that on your playlist later.
I will definitely keep that in mind for the actual Valentine's Day. Yeah. But yeah, on top of that, you know, it just so happens to also be one of my all-time favorite records for a ton of other reasons that I won't bore my regular audience with. They know, or at least I hope they know by this point.
Yeah, and if you don't know, now you know.
Exactly. Any honorable mentions, albums or songs that you want to talk about, but maybe didn't get put on the list?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I gotta give a shout out to, of course, the Metal Queen Doro Pesh. I feel like Triumph and Agony, or really their live album, Doro Live, that came out like decades ago. But you know, she's always delivered the goods and has one hell of a backing band behind her. It managed to be very sexy, but in a strong way, and without really talking about. I guess she does, but a lot of her songs are about just being metal and just like the steel and stuff. But yeah, still a little bit of like she's very like assertive and like very strong, which I think is really cool. Yeah. So that's always a big one. And of course, I got to mention, as I'm looking at it, looking back at me, Nasty Savage, the self-titled album.
Oh hell
not really. No, I mean they do have that song "Dungeon of Pleasure," which is pretty straightforward if you can see what they were probably talking about. But again, totally rowdy album. I interviewed Nasty Ronnie from that band a few weeks ago, and he told stories about just like when they were on the scene, just having these crazy parties with the cops showing up in backyards in Florida. So I was like, yeah, that makes me want to be there and hear that album and just get crazy with some chicks when I hear it. So that's another good one.
Hell yeah. I think for me, I could never narrow down a single album for this band, but I gotta bring them up. I gotta bring up Scorpions. Like there's so many super great baby making tunes across their entire discography. I mean, Rock You Like a Hurricane is another one of those like definitive strip club songs. Same thing goes for like No One Like You, Blackout, Arizona, some of the early cuts as well, like Big City Nights, and some of the more controversial cuts like Virgin Killer. Like there's some weird, crazy, raunchy stuff across their discography that's really fun and really sexy.
Oh yeah, again, I gotta going through my record crate, saw that record too, Love at First Sting, and just the album cover alone, it's like pure romance. You have the guy and the girl.
Oh god, yeah.
And he's making the tattoo of the scorpion on her ankle. And songs like Bad Boys Running Wild, a lot of songs in that record just are rowdy straight out the gate. I know that for a lot of my metalhead friends and musicians friends, they're real into their earlier stuff, like the deep cuts with Yuli John Roth in the 70s, like Virgin Killer and those records. But I really just dig like the kick-ass arena rock very well put together record of Love at First Sting. And the album covers pure romance for sure.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Two other ones I'll mention real fast, just because now my juices are flowing. Typo Negative, Origin of the Feces, their live record that came out, where they pretty much took all the best parts of their first album and kind of tightened it up a little bit and added some sketches in there that I guess were inspired by true events. But, you know, Peter Steele, very romantic person, and at the same time, very kind of like grouchy and self-loathing. So it's a real interesting dichotomy, because like the chicks love him, but he was also kind of miserable, but very funny about it. So he's like a mix of like fucking Gaston from Beauty and the Beast and the George Costanza. Very New York, very curmudgeon, very New Yorker. As a New Yorker myself, like I definitely relate to him, and in that record too, in between songs, you know, I was like, let's get this over with, or you know, you paid $15 American to see us, even though it was a pretend live recording. So, but that record's a total banger. Really enjoy it. Of course, they have a bunch of songs about fucking in there because it's Typo Negative, or if it's not about fucking, it's about being sad and depressed because they're not fucking. So, all within the same continuum. And lastly, this is definitely the soundtrack of my pandemic experience with a very special lady in my life who I'm now engaged to.
Well, congratulations.
So, yeah. The seeds of seduction have been planted, if you know what
Hell fucking yeah.
But yeah, during the pandemic, that was pretty much when I was like, all right, we're cool. We're not yelling at each other or at each other's throats. Like, put a ring on this. And I think a big part of that time and that soundtrack is Prince's The Hits. It's a triple album, two CDs with all of his hits, which are innumerable, and then a third CD of his deep cuts. But it's just an amazing record of a super prolific, very sexual, romantic, talented dude who could shred.
Oh my lord, yeah.
Lays it down, and just so many hits. You know, Soft and Wet, the deep cuts. You know, Peach, Hair, all the big hits that you'd expect from Prince. So it's just like, and just hearing all those hits, I know that a lot of greatest hits records can be kind of cheesy, or like cash grabs, but every now and again, there's an artist where it's justified. It's just like, holy hell, like they're listening to 2 CDs worth of like many tracks, like 18, 19 tracks of just like one banger after another that are also good songs that you can bang to while you're listening to these bangers, as only Prince can. So it was a very awe-inspiring record and very, I think, appropriate body of work, even though there's still hits that he left out for a guy like Prince.
He was a fantastic performer, and definitely like super sexually charged. Like he would just get up on stage and like rip out a gnarly guitar solo and then moan on stage and tear off his shirt. And that would just be like during the first song, he would do shit like that. Like the dude was an animal. I always really loved, a greatest hits album would be, you know, it's Prince. All the hits are hits. But I always really loved Purple Rain in 1999. I mean, there's so many great songs on those albums. I mean, across the discography for sure. I mean, just a great performer.
Yeah, 5'5", pure sex.
Hell fucking yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Those are what we feel are some of the sexiest, hottest metal albums of all time. Plus, we gave you a few extra little sexy tidbits. So hopefully you can take all of this information, put it all into some kind of playlist or whatever, and have yourself a fantastic Valentine's Day, be it with a special person or even if it's just by yourself. Ain't nothing wrong with some self-love. No harm, no disrespect whatsoever. Thank you very much to the Necrosexual for joining us today. Any final words for the fine folks out there watching this?
Yeah, baby, keep it grim, and I'll see you in your nightmares or wet dreams.
Fuck, whichever one comes first, eh?
Yeah.
That's all, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you check out the Necrosexual on Instagram and across social media. Make sure you check out his band, the Necrosexual, Seeds of Seduction, and tons of other great tunes and records. Press this button to subscribe if you somehow haven't already. Happy Valentine's Day, and have a fantastic fucking day.